everyone. So today we're going to be going through a Yoga 101 class, and we're going to be focusing on Sun Salutation A. So our Sun Salutations are basically just a set series of poses that help to warm up the body, that help to focus the mind, start to build circulation, and really just get the body moving and prepared for a slow flow type class, a blend of vinyasa. And for today's practice, I'm still going to keep the element of a class here so that if you really want to practice, we're going to get that in. But we're going to go slowly, especially the first few times, so really slowly. So breaking down the poses along the way and maybe even talking a little bit about the elements of the poses while we're in them. So for the purposes of this class, we will begin and end as we would maybe in any other type of class. So we'll end with a Shavasana, and we're going to actually start this one in a child's pose. If you want to use props, I highly recommend them, especially if you have maybe really tight hamstrings, if you have bad knees. Have a blanket and maybe two blocks would be helpful. And if this is not a helpful starting position for you, child's pose, feel free to start really with anything that feels good to you. So we're just going to start to build our breath here. If you would like a modification right off the bat for a child's pose, you could take a blanket and maybe place it behind your knees. That'll feel a little bit better for you. Or if you have a lot of tension in your knees, or maybe they just experience pain, sometimes it's nice to place a blanket kind of right underneath the shins. And so the knees actually aren't touching anything at all. So your choice there. I'm going to move the blanket away, and we're going to start in child's pose, big toes touching, knees out wide, sinking the hips back towards the heels, stretching the arms forward, and just letting the forehead rest on the floor. And just begin to tune in, begin to notice what's going on in the body. Begin to notice the breath. See if you can start to soften some of the areas that feel maybe a little bit more tense. So the shoulders, releasing the low back. Softly beginning to deepen the breath here. Maybe inhaling for the count of 4. And exhaling for the count of 6. Really starting to regulate the breath here. Taking 3 more full rounds of breath. And slowly rising up to hands and knees. And let's just warm up the spine a little bit with a few rounds of cat-cow. So creases of the wrists, under the shoulders, knees, underneath the hips. As you inhale, the belly falls, the gaze lifts, the shoulders draw down and away from the ears. And as you exhale, tuck the tail, round the spine, drop the head. Let's do that a few more times. Drop the belly, lift the gaze. Exhale, tuck the tail, round the spine. And one more time. And coming back to neutral. Let's tuck the toes and lift the hips up and back into downward facing dog, just as a transition pose this first time here. Maybe pedaling the feet back and forth if you want to feel a light stretch in the calf muscles, and just kind of get the feet moving and the toes moving. And then slowly walk the feet forward towards the hands. Once you're there, allow yourself to dangle in a forward fold. Feel free to interlace the hands over the elbows if you'd like.
Again, just taking everything in, noticing how the body's feeling right now. If you have that bind, release it. As you inhale, rise all the way up. Swim the arms all the way up and overhead. And as you exhale, bring the hands to the heart. Good. So our first pose here is mountain pose. So release the arms alongside you and take the feet approximately hips width distance apart, toes forward. Palms can be certainly facing in. I like them facing out so that we can open up the heart and relax the shoulders down. And then close the eyes for a moment here. With the eyes closed, just noticing your posture. And for this one, for mountain pose, what we want is the knees to be stacked over the ankles, the hips over the knees, the shoulders over the hips, and the ears in line with the shoulders. So just feel what that feels like in the body. Maybe noticing if you're placing more weight in one foot than the other. And taking just a few more breaths there. If the eyes are still closed, blink open the eyes. As we inhale, swim the arms all the way up and overhead. As you exhale, softly fold forward. And again, just hanging out here this first round, noticing how it feels, and modifying it if necessary. So if that's a little bit too much for you there, grab a couple blocks, prop your hands up on the blocks, and just go ahead and hang out here. Or interlace the hands over the elbows, so doing whatever suits your body this morning, or this afternoon, or whenever you happen to be practicing this one. Keeping the knees soft. So really importantly, we're not locking out the back of the knees here, so it's really common to press the knees back into that lock position. Keep a sense of buoyancy in your knees anytime you're placing weight. Now, as you inhale, lift and lengthen the spine halfway. So this is a really common cue for sun salutations. And what we're looking for here, I have my fingertips on the floor, which is where I usually go, is we're looking to create the natural curves in the spine. So if you're rounding in the spine here, see if you can maybe exaggerate pressing the tailbone up. Maybe come up onto those blocks if that's more helpful for you, lengthening the spine. Bring the fingertips to the shins, making sure we're not locking out the knees. Lengthen the spine, looking for those natural curves in the spine. And some of us may even need to place the hands on the thighs. So all of that's okay. Do whatever feels best for you. And then as you exhale, refold. Plant the hands, and we're going to step back to top of a push-up here. Now this first round through, let's drop our knees. So this is always an acceptable modification for this one. So top of a push-up. And the same principles apply whether the knees are up or down. So pressing down through the base of the thumb, the second finger, hug the upper arm bones in, squeeze the belly in, create a really strong support system here as we begin to lower down now. So we're going to begin to lower down halfway. So we call this one Chaturanga, and the elbows are going to come back in space. Try to not drop the head. And what we want to make sure here is that we don't tip the heads of the shoulders forward, that we keep them lifted. So really important is that we're not bending the elbows beyond the back. So we don't want to see this. Instead, stay a little bit higher, a little bit more buoyant. How about one breath there? And then lower all the way down to the mat, untuck the toes. Keeping the hands right where they're at, squeeze the elbows in, squeeze the shoulder blades in. Press the floor away from you as you lift up into Cobra. So baby Cobra would be a nice one to do if this is all that we can do today. If you want a little bit higher version, go ahead and press the chest up, gaze forward, and make sure not to shrug the shoulders up towards the ears. So shoulders stay down and relaxed, elbows hug in. One more breath. Good. And then press back to hands and knees and downward facing dog. So now in our downward facing dog, we want the hands to be approximately shoulder distance apart. Fingers are spread wide. And I like to use imagination a lot when I'm doing these poses. So see if you can imagine that your hands are glued onto the mat right now and that you're trying to drag your thumbs towards each other. That's going to help us find a little bit of external rotation in the shoulders so that we're not scrunching them up by the ears. Good, now hug the upper arm bones in, maybe feeling that sensation a little bit more. And so the same thing applies here, as we want the natural curves in the spine to be present. So we want a little bit of a curve in the low back. Think about lifting the hip creases maybe up a little bit higher. And then our gaze can be between our feet. If you really want to, you could certainly gaze up a little bit higher. And as you're gazing at your feet, the feet should be at least hips width distance apart. I think it's a little bit nicer to have them a little bit wider. And we want the opposite of what's happening in the shoulders to be happening in the legs. So a little bit of internal rotation in the upper inner thighs. So this is a really strong pose. If you're getting tired, feel free to take that child's pose for a little rest. Let's take one more breath here. Good, and then as we inhale, rise to the tippy toes. Exhale, step between the hands. Inhale, lift halfway, find length, natural curves in the spine. Exhale, fold and soften. Inhale, arms rise all the way up and overhead. Exhale, hands to the heart. Good, so now we're going to go through the sun salutation 5 times. Seems like a good number to do. And without the modifications. So if you're taking the modifications, just go ahead and continue to take them if you'd like to. Otherwise, stay with me and we'll do 5 unmodified versions of Sun Salutation A. So as we inhale, arms rise, maybe take your gaze up towards the fingers. Exhale, fold forward. Inhale, lift and lengthen, finding that nice length in the spine. Exhale, plant the hands, step to the back of the mat, top of a push-up. You can stay here as long as you like. Hug the upper arm bones in. Maybe imagine dialing the fingers apart. So like you're opening a jar with the left hand and closing a jar with the right hand. That makes sense. Hug the navel towards the spine. And for this one to feel even stronger, see if you can feel the muscles of the thighs squeezing onto the thigh bones. And then come forward just a tad. As you exhale, bend the elbows back in space, not out. So we want to hug the ribs here. Remember, stay a little bit higher. And then untuck the toes, drop the hips, lift the chest for upward facing dog. Exhale, downward facing dog. Let's take 5 breaths. And drop the weight of the head. Really connecting again with the breath. 2 more breaths here. As you inhale, rise to the tippy toes. Exhale, step, jump, maybe float to the front of the mat. Inhale, lift and lengthen the spine. Exhale, fold. Inhale, arms rise all the way up and overhead. Exhale, hands to the heart. Let's do that 4 more times. Inhale, arms rise. Exhale, fold forward. Inhale, lift and lengthen the spine. Exhale, plant the hands, step to the back of the mat, top of a push-up. Take an inhale. Exhale, Chaturanga. Inhale, upward facing dog. Exhale, downward facing dog, 5 breaths. One more breath. As you inhale, rise to the tippy toes. Exhale, step, jump, or float to the front of the mat. Inhale, lift and lengthen the spine. Exhale, fold. Inhale, arms rise all the way up and overhead. Exhale, hands to the heart. Inhale, arms rise. Exhale, softly fold forward. Keep the knees unlocked. Inhale, lift and lengthen the spine. Exhale, plant the hands, step to the back of the mat, top of a push-up. Take an inhale. Exhale, lower halfway down. Inhale through to upward facing dog. Exhale, downward facing dog. So starting to feel that heat building in the body now. Really starting to maybe sense the connection of breath and movement. And feeling a relaxed quality in the mind. One more breath. As we inhale, rise to the tippy toes. Exhale, step, jump, or float to the front of the mat. Inhale, lift and lengthen the spine. Exhale, fold. Inhale, arms rise all the way up and overhead. Exhale, hands to the heart. Inhale, arms rise. Exhale, fold forward. Inhale, lift and lengthen the spine. Exhale, plant the hands, step to the back of the mat, top of a push-up. And take an inhale. Exhale, lower halfway down, Chaturanga. Untuck the toes, lift the chest, upward facing dog. Exhale, downward facing dog. 5 breaths, soften the knees. Hug those upper arm bones in. Take the upper thighs back, upper inner thighs back. Relax the heels, they don't have to touch the floor. Maybe they're hovering, maybe they can touch, but don't lock out those knees. Inhale, rise to the tippy toes. Exhale, step, jump, or float to the front of the mat. Inhale, lift and lengthen the spine. Exhale, fold. Inhale, swim the arms all the way up and overhead. And exhale, hands to the heart. So I've lost count, so we're going to do 2 more rounds. Inhale, arms rise. That could be right. Exhale, fold forward. Inhale, lift and lengthen the spine. Exhale, plant the hands, step to the back of the mat, top of a push-up. Take that inhale. Exhale, Chaturanga. Inhale, upward facing dog. Exhale, downward facing dog. 5 breaths. 1 more round after this. Hug those upper arm bones in. Feeling that circulation flowing through the body now. Maybe feeling like you're in a little bit better mood. One more breath. Inhale, rise to the toes. Exhale, step, jump, or float to the front of the mat. Inhale, lift and lengthen the spine. Exhale, fold. Inhale, arms rise all the way up and overhead. Exhale, hands to the heart, 1 more round. Inhale, take those arms up. Exhale, fold forward. Inhale, lift and lengthen the spine. Exhale, plant the hands, step on back, top of a push-up. Last time, take it, inhale. Exhale, Chaturanga, lower halfway down. Inhale through to upward facing dog. Exhale, downward facing dog. Let's take 5 breaths. Drop the knees. Go ahead and sit back and let's flip right over to a brief Shavasana. So laying on your back, maybe even ending with a bend in your knees if that feels good to you.
And letting the arms completely relax. Allowing the eyes to close. Taking a huge breath here in through the nose. Exhale, release it out of the mouth. Enjoy your Shavasana.